When I first heard Kanye West's first comments that made headlines about a week ago, I didn't rush to say that he's an anti Semite. I preferred instead to say that perhaps he didn't choose his words correctly and that he was referring specifically to certain Jewish people that he knows. But as more of his quotes and public comments have come to light, it's quite obvious to me that he does quite undeniably hold anti Semitic views and he's actively trying to spread them. However, I disagree with a lot of people in that I do not think the solution is to censor him or other people like him, but rather to respond to them. By censorship, I'm referring to like government censorship or non private organizations. But yes, if an organization considers association with him to be detrimental to their business, of course it's in their interest to drop him, as many already are. What I find most funny, though, in this whole escapade is that the fact that they make such a big deal about Kanye West's statements, anti Semitic statements, it's less because he's making anti Semitic statements and more because he also holds certain unpopular conservative or libertarian views, which many in pop culture hate. And whereas they typically tolerate anti Semitic accusations when they come from radical left wing sources on a daily basis, yet when they can find a person who is not a radical leftist saying these things, they will use it simply as a tool to try to censor that person, not so much because they're anti Semitic, but because they dislike other non anti Semitic views that that person happens to hold. And the irony in all this is that the major sources of anti Semitism are not individuals acting as individuals like Kanye West, but rather the media organizations and pop cultural TV shows that propagate these sorts of concepts, mostly in the name of so-called anti-Zionism, which is really 99% of the time just a politically correct way of getting around overtly anti-Semitic comments. And the irony in all this is that it disproves the very conspiracy that Kanye West is promoting, namely that Jews, quote unquote, control the media and government and everything. If Jews controlled the world or governments, Israel would be much larger than it is right now, which is roughly the size of New Jersey, most of that being uninhabitable desert. Furthermore, if Jews controlled the media, and yes, there is disproportionate representation of people with Jewish heritage who are owners of major media corporations. But the very fact that these same Jews own companies which daily promulgate anti Semitic ideas and false accusations against the world's only Jewish country, specifically because it's Jewish, for no other reason, there's an overt double standard. The mere fact that these Jewish owners permit their media companies to spread this slander against the Jewish people, which is essentially what they're doing, because these slanders against Jews who live in their homeland in Israel, this slander is used to justify slaughtering innocent Jewish civilians over there. I encountered these sorts of terrorist attacks many times while I was living there. So yes, think about it. If Jews really control the world, how do you explain the voting records and policies of the UN, the United Nations? How do you explain the daily anti-Semitic blood libels against the Jewish people living in their homeland, the land of Israel? So you see, it doesn't matter that someone happens to have Jewish blood or happens to have Jewish heritage if they don't value their heritage. If they disparage Jewish values, then their Jewish heritage is meaningless. It's meaningful as long as they identify and value the meaning in it. But when they reject that meaning, then it has no more meaning that these media owners are Jewish than that I happen to be British. I'm genetically overwhelmingly of British ancestry, but I don't represent the British. That's the same exact situation with the majority of highly influential people of Jewish background. The fact that they happen to have Jewish background truly is irrelevant. It would only be relevant if it were truly relevant to them, and it's not. On that note, leave your questions and comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. Yalla bye.